It's silly trying to knock out towns by high explosives. It just can't be done.
Don't have to convince me. Convince Hitler.
Wait till the Americans get the atomic bomb.
Are you sure that they will?
I wouldn't have volunteered for Los Alamos if I wasn't.
So you don't think anything will come of Luke's affair?
Oh, I wouldn't go as far as that. When he started talking, I thought he'd do himself a bit of no good.
And now?
I'd say in time, Master Luke might show a return for his money. But not as soon as he thinks. Well, that's it for tonight. Thanks for the bunk.
Have a good trip.
And to pray. Ah.
I thought you ought to know. I've just had a note from Luke. The balloon's due to go up on the 22nd.
Ah. Well, that should confound some of the doubters. Best wishes, Elliot. Please be so good as to convey my best wishes to all concerned. This may be a mildly epoch-making occasion. Hmm?
Last-minute snag.
It's like finding at the crucial moment you've forgotten the contraceptive. I could bloody cry.
Martin,
Lewis,
Never mind the courtesies.
we've isolated the problem. Eric's working on it.
what's it?
One of the control rod switches. If the pile gets too hot, they automatically switch the whole thing off.
If they don't work, we could find ourselves kissing goodbye to most of Warwickshire.
And that's the sanguine view. Hell! Should I make a statement?
What for?
Sake of public relations?
Bollocks. Let 'em sweat. We are, aren't we?
All right, Walter.
You lovely lad.
Piper ready?
Piper is just fine.
Uranium rods in place.
Uranium rods checked and ready.
Heavy water ready.
When you are, Dr. Elliot.
Rate meter.
Indicating.
Instrumentation report.
Geiger counter positive, logarithmic amplifier positive, DC amplifier positive.
Eric, I'd like you to meet Lewis Elliot. Lewis Elliot, Eric Sawbridge.
We've met, haven't we?
You recruited me.
Oh, of course. You're from Leicester.
The R seems the place.
Uncle Carl never said you were to be uncouth, to be a good Marxist, did he?
But it seems to help when you're young.
It's better than being bloody patronising anyway.
All set.
Right. Glug glug.
Start pouring the heavy water in. Don't slop it about too much. Each of those flasks costs God knows what.
About £2,000, actually.
And we've got the man from the ministry here, as you can see.
You're going to pour it in by hand?
How else?
You scientists amaze me. You have that thing engineered to a thousandth of an inch. You insist on metal so analytically pure they make history. You spend a fortune importing heavy water to make it operative, then you're going to stop the whole thing and say you're filling a bath from buckets.
I don't mind being slapdash when it doesn't matter.
You take a positive pride in it.
We'll siphon it in next time. You wait till you get the bill for that.
When we know for sure that it's going to run.
When the pile's half full. In about an hour. I should go for a walk if I was you.
Might miss something.
Well, go and annoy Nora then.
Nora,
Lewis.
a loving husband told me to come and annoy you instead of annoying him.
Oh, he would, the rat.
What are you doing?
Reading the neutron flux.
Uh-huh.
Oh, you poor man. Well, the heavy water acts as a moderator, right? Well, as it's poured in, more and more neutrons are produced. These register them. I plot them on this. Pretty soon after it's half full, the point should reach here. And that's when the power should start to run.
And the chain reaction begins.
Well, if it doesn't, there's going to be egg all over Walter's face.
Not only his.
Quarter full. And another.
Half full.
We're there, or thereabouts.
Not so bad.
Slowly now, only when I say. One more flask. What's the level?
0.55.
Let me see. Hold it a minute, Eric.
You're milking it, Walter.
Tell him not to leave it too long, Martin. You might lose your audience.
If only we made the whole thing bigger.
Yes, well, we didn't.
How bad is it?
Bloody bad. If only we made the thing 50% bigger, then whatever's gone wrong, it would have worked.
We spoke too soon.
You mean I never know when to keep my mouth shut?
Doesn't matter much who's at fault.
The fact is, we've got to take the consequences.
It's just on the edge of being right.
No, that's like telling the girl she's only a little bit pregnant. I only hope to God the Germans are capable of making bloody fools of themselves like this. Why the hell didn't I get it quite right?
Something's stopping the slow newts.
Yes, but what? The heavy water's all right.
The electronics are all right.
The engineering's all right.
Then it must be the uranium.
Well, the test sample didn't show any impurities.
Perhaps it wasn't big enough.
Well, how big does a sample need to be, for Christ's sake?
We were both surprised not to find a trace of gadolinium, for example.
Do you think that's what's bitched us?
I don't see what else could account for it.
But for the sample not to have shown up anything, the quantity must be minute.
For the want of a nail, the battle was lost.
Do you think they've rumbled?
Oh, I doubt it.
I've got to go and tell them that their short-sighted, fatuous, bloody ignorant criticism has turned out to be right.
Somebody's got to.
Well, I can't do it.
Then I will.
No. I must do it. You've got more nerve than I have, but you'd be too diplomatic. It's a mistake to be diplomatic about a bloody fiasco, right?
Probably. Although there's no need to be aggressively undiplomatic.
You sit on the fence much harder, and you're liable to split right down the middle. Here we go. I'm going to try another reading, just on the off chance.
It would be a miracle.
Bloody miracle's the only thing that can save us now. Start pouring again. Take her up to 0.6, Eric.
Steady as you go. Coming up. 0.56. 0.57. 0.58. 0.59. 0.6. Hold it!
That's all for tonight. We'll get it right, but it's going to take some time. At the moment, it's a flop. We've spent the money. Otherwise, you could have it back at the box office.
appreciate, my dear Elliot, that it is rather unfortunate. There's been rather too much criticism of this project to be comfortable all along.
I'm well aware of it.
May have been a mistake not to take the line of least resistance and pack them all off to America.
If so, I helped to make it.
I'm afraid you did. So did I. If it was a mistake, we were both led up the garden path by Luke and his colleagues. I think Victoria called that one.
Hmm?
Why in the name of God do they all talk so much and do so little? However, all that can wait. Now I should like to benefit from your advice. What do you suggest as the next step?
Well, there are only two choices. You either break up the Barford project and send the scientists over to work on the Manhattan project, or you reinvest in Luke.
That seems both accurate and succinct. What, in your judgment, would be the sounder step?
I'm not impartial. If you break up Barford, it'll be an open failure for my brother as well as Luke.
I recognize the human consideration. And I should think the less of you if you can't eliminate it when framing your advice.
Most people down there believe the power will run in the end. And with the present level of resources, it'll take months or perhaps years if the diagnosis is wrong. Now, there's a chance. How good, I can't guess. We could speed up the project by giving Luke even more men, even more money. I'm against any compromise. You've either got to show some faith now or give up the British bomb.
Sorry. You were saying?
All I was trying to say, sir, was I think we ought to increase the resources for Barford.
Double or quits, if I haven't misunderstood you, my dear chap.
That's about it.
What can I do for you, Captain Hook?
I shall be pleased if that joke proves less indestructible than Peter Pan.
Sorry, Major, darling.
I've come for a little confab about our mutual friends at Barford.
Yes, I'd heard you've been having a bit of trouble.
We don't want to blot our copybook.
Well, nothing very serious has got out, has it?
I don't know. Do you? If one thing gets out, another can. That's why we're hot and bothered. Do you know anything of a young man called Sawbridge?
Well, I was present at his interview. Seen him a couple of times since. I didn't find him very forthcoming.
Oh, I just thought you might have known him at home.
Hardly. I left Leicester for London in 1927. Sawbridge must have been about, what, 8 or 9? And in his own inimitable words, from the arse end of town. No, Martin's much more likely to have known him.
Oh, we haven't forgotten your brother, M.F. Eliot. I expect you're wondering what all this is in aid of.
If that doesn't incriminate me.
Well, there are one or two straws in the wind. We have an idea that the young man may not have been altogether wise.
Have you got anything definite against him?
2 facts. Number 1, he attended anti-war meetings in 1940 and 1941. Number 2, he was a member of the Communist Party at university.
It's a free country.
Small thanks to our communist friends. All I'm suggesting is that he seems to have gone off the rails a bit.
How's it going?
Not a lot. Like everyone else, I'm marking time till we get the last batch of purified uranium in.
Did Captain Hook interview you? I think we ought to have a word. I suppose he told you about Sawbridge.
Yes.
How much is there in it?
If you mean that our security service has cleverly found out that Sawbridge is left-wing, that's not exactly news. If Captain Hook and his friends intend to eliminate all the left-wing people working on fission here and in America, there won't be enough of us left to finish the job.
Do you think that Sawbridge has parted with any information?
You know him nearly as well as I do.
Do you like him any better?
bit of a clod.
I agree, but can you imagine him fanatical enough to give secrets away?
Under some circumstances, I can imagine better men giving them away. Can't you? Anyway, you ought to know that to a scientist, secrecy is evil. Even if in time of war, it's a necessary evil. Science is, by definition, universal. That's why it conquers. If it dwindles away into little secret groups, hiding their results from each other, it'll become no better than a set of recipes. Within a generation, it will have lost all its ideals and most of its efficacy. End of lecture. Arthur Mountain is coming to dinner, by the way.
Oh, good.
You satisfied with the way you've spent your life, Lewis? I only ask because I've been examining my own.
Well, what made you a scientist?
Oh, I think I was born one. I don't remember ever making a conscious decision, but if I had to justify it...
Irene says to say goodnight.
She all right?
Yeah, fine. A bit tired, that's all. Well, she's had some bad nights lately with the baby not sleeping.
I don't suppose you deign to answer your son and heir's midnight appeals?
I would, it's just that I seem to sleep through them.
Typical chauvinist.
Arthur was just about to justify being a scientist.
No, I don't think I can. And all I know is that science has been the one permanent source of happiness in my life. And really, that happiness is a private, if you like, a selfish one. It's the happiness I derive from seeing how nature works. It's got nothing to do with whether my work is of any practical use to anyone.
I agree.
Yes, that's the link between us. We're both contemplatives.
Unlike Walter Luke.
Oh, for Walter, contemplation's a means, not a joy in itself. His happiness is to make Mother Nature sit up and beg.
Just hear him saying that.
Yes, he did. He wants power over nature so that human beings can have better lives. In a way, I wish I shared his pleasure.
Yes, ours does begin to seem a little too private.
Not enough justification for a life?
Oh, I'd like to say the science was good in itself. I feel it is. But in the long run, the only way we can justify ourselves is by showing that our work, and science in general, is of practical good to human lives.
I suppose it has done more practical good than harm, hasn't it?
Everyone asks that question in wartime.
Seems to be doing a pretty good job of killing people at the moment.
We get the numbers out of proportion. Of course science kills some people. It keeps alive a far greater number. Something of a quite different order.
Yes, taking into account war danger, my son has an actuarial expectation of life of at least 65 years. Now, in the 18th century, before organised science got going, it would have been about 25. That's the practical effect of science.
I mean, it's such a big thing that it makes minor grumbles seem insignificant. I mean, it'll go on whatever happens.
Even if you succeed in making the atomic bomb?
Oh, I've done nothing useful towards that.
Oh, come off it, Arthur. We all have. Oh, we like to blind ourselves to the end because the means are technically sweet. Pure physics. But not one of us at Barford is working in a vacuum. Every step we take is towards a British bomb. And why not? We'll have had it if the Germans get there before we do.
But suppose somebody actually uses the thing.
Oh, it won't happen.
It mustn't happen.
That's unthinkable.
A lot of the things the Nazis have done were unthinkable until they did them.
Well, that's why we're fighting them.
You don't believe that we could use it?
Well, I find it almost incredible.
I'm glad to hear it. Particularly as you're a pessimistic man.
Yes, it is incredible. But we ought to take a few sensible steps just to make sure. I suppose they can be taught to realise what dropping just one bomb in a populated area would mean. 300,000 killed, just like that. And at least another 300,000 doomed to die slowly and more horribly than we can imagine from radiation poisoning.
Yes, we can teach them. More to the point, we must make sure the scientists are ready to assert themselves the first whisper of nonsense.
Why scientists especially?
Because no one could drop it if they could imagine the consequences. Scientists can imagine the consequences.
For years now, Luke and his colleagues have been making increasingly strident and extravagant demands to enable them to deliver themselves of a controlled chain reaction.
Yes.
The end of that process will be the manufacture of quantities of plutonium.
Well,
yes or no?
Yes.
The sole purpose of this elusive product being to allow us to manufacture a British atomic, or more correctly, fission bomb. Once again, yes or no?
Yes.
To this end, you, and I have had to endure skepticism, criticism, and indeed derision as they lurched their way from one embarrassing fiasco to another. The question is rhetorical.
I gathered.
And now they may be within sight of success. You're telling me that they are seriously concerned about the hypothetical use to which we may one day put the fruits of their endeavor.
That's right.
Seems to me almost unbelievably academic.
Men don't change because the issues they decide are bigger scale.
The trouble is that scientists talk too much. It leads to this sort of agonized speculation about ethical dilemmas which might never arrive.
This one does.
Our masters will cross that bridge when they come to it.
Hello.
Lewis?
Martin?
It's all right.
What's all right?
The pile began to run an hour ago. 3:05 a.m. on the night of September 27th, 28th. Just for purposes of reference.
Why didn't you tell me you were starting?
I thought it was better like this.
Well, congratulations.
I still can't quite believe it.
Well, Lewis, this is a bit better.
To say the least of it.
They ought to have known it was the neatest way to do it. The one thing that matters now is how soon we can make the bloody bomb. Until then, I shan't be able to go back to doing something worthwhile.
What's the time factor?
A good 5 months for enough plutonium to form in the uranium rods, and then it'll be another 3 months before they're cool enough to be handled.
Cut that down.
Not much.
If we can do it, so can the Germans. That's one of the reasons I want to push on. It'd be too damn silly if they pulled this one out of the bag before us now.
Well, what are the other reasons?
Well, to tell you the truth, Lewis, I'd rather we got it first. So that we have some influence in case any maniac wants to use the damn thing.
That's a point.
It's not the real point, as you very well know. The real reason is that I cannot bear not to come first.
Let's look at my assumption. You can't go near the rods before March the 1st? Now, what's the earliest possible date to possess the plutonium?
The operative word is possible.
I'll get it out in 6 weeks from March the 1st if it's the last thing I do.
It may be.
Yes.
What's the matter?
Well, there are hazards. They may be formidable. No one knows much about handling plutonium. It might have toxic properties, and we won't be able to test each step for safety. We might expose ourselves to illness. Probably grave and conceivably fatal. Is that fair?
What do you mean?
I can't ask any of our chaps to put their hands inside this blasted stew.
Just before Lewis arrived, someone was waiting to volunteer.
Who?
Sawbridge.
Good for him, but I can't let him.
No. We can't ask any of the others, or even let them volunteer. It's nice to have a little confidence. I never had enough. I got a bad start.
Then why don't you sit tight when you've got it?
It's not so easy.
Just when we're getting everything we wanted, you're ready to throw it away.
We've talked this out, haven't we?
I can't let you go on with this madness. Do you expect me just to sit quiet and wait for the end of the war to stop you risking your life to get out this plutonium a few days ahead of schedule? I suppose if the war does end, you will have a glimmer of sense.
If the war ended, there wouldn't be any necessity to go so fast. I shouldn't be sorry if the necessity didn't arise.
You know you're frightened.
Yes, I'm extremely frightened.
Then why don't you think of yourself?
I've told you.
Why don't you think of me?
I've told you that, too.
All you've done is to think of Lewis.
Well, I don't think I've influenced
I
this.
don't mean you, I mean our son. Do you believe it's enough just to insure yourself for him? I mean, do you believe it really matters whether he goes to the sort of school that you two didn't go to?
I wish I could do more for him.
To think that I gave up my life in London to marry you. I could have had any man I wanted. And I did.
As you've told me.
And you minded.
Yes, I minded the fact that you had lovers.
But now you've got me good and trapped. You just don't care anymore.
I no longer feel driven to look after you, that's all. I want you to be happy. I've made arrangements for you in case I get incapacitated or killed, but I'm sorry. The only fear that counts, beside my own animal fear, is of what my death may do to my son.
Can't you make him behave decently?
I have no authority to interfere.
Thank you.
You've never liked me, have you?
I never thought you were the right wife for Martin.
You must be pleased to be proved so triumphantly right.
As a matter of fact, I'm beginning to wonder whether he's the right husband for you.
I've decided to accept Eric's offer after all.
Then I think you should let me go with him.
I'm going to overrule you. This bit of nonsense is my idea, and it's only right that I should have first sniff at it.
I can't pretend I'm sorry.
Wise man.
Good luck.
Come on, Eric.
Don't know is whether to label Luke's dose as a lethal dose or only near lethal.
Well, I understand it was the purest accident. I mean, they hadn't actually got the stuff up when the container shattered.
No, Luke went down immediately and Sawbridge a matter of moments afterwards. Mercifully, in the interim, he managed to drag Luke clear and sound the alarm. But it oughtn't to have happened, Lewis. It oughtn't to have been allowed to happen to anyone, let alone someone we can't spare. Some of you people ought to have realized he's one of the men we cannot spare. I should like anyone who's ever talked about using the nuclear bomb to take a look at Luke now.
Got a bone to pick with you, Lewis. We must have more bods.
You can have anything you want.
I can't think what we want. You better settle it all with Martin. I'm a bit out of touch.
Soon get in touch again. It won't take you a week when you do get out of here.
It may not be good for much when I do get out of here.
Nonsense.
Are you thinking about that again?
What is it?
He's afraid he might be sterile.
The dose must have been just about big enough.
I don't for 1 minute think you will be. But if the worst comes to the very worst, well, it doesn't matter very much. We've got our 2 children we never wanted anymore.
There must be a chance that some of this stuff will have settled in the bone.
I wish I could tell you that there wasn't.
If I get over this boat, I'll have that hanging over me.
You seem a bit better.
I wish I could believe you.
How's the bleeding?
That may have dropped off a bit.
Oh, that's very important. Don't you see how important that is? Retiring you. We'll let you get some sleep, like Eric here.
I'm not asleep.
How are you?
All right.
Yes, the figures look encouraging.
Never been as bad as he was.
We've been worried about you all the same.
You needn't have bothered.
That was a brave thing you did.
Balls.
There's one spire out on the flowering chestnut.
Bugger the flowering chestnut.
Yeah.
The Germans have agreed to an unconditional surrender.
What timing?
Yes.
That puts the tin lid on it.
This project's been a cock-up from beginning to end.
Dr. Pearson?
Eric? I have a piece of information that I'm to give to you.
Yes.
I've no authority to give it to anyone else.
I take it this information is to go to the committee.
The sooner the better.
Then I can authorize you to speak in front of Elliot. He is part of the secretariat of this committee, and in any case, I should have to pass the information at once.
Well, as long as it's understood that this is for the committee and for no one else in this country.
We take that point, Dr. Pearson, but many, many thanks for your precaution.
Well then. We've got an atomic bomb.
Have you indeed? I must congratulate you most sincerely and our American colleagues.
We're just putting the finishing touches to the hardware. It's nearly ready for delivery.
What happens now?
Well, before we make any more, there are lots of loose ends to tie up.
No, I didn't mean that. Pretty soon you'll have 2 or 3. Well, what happens to them?
They're going to explode one in the desert soon, just to see if it goes off all right.
And the others?
I don't have much to do with the military, but there's some talk they're going to try one on the Japs.
How do the scientists over there take that?
Some of them are getting a bit restive.
Well, the people at Barford will get a bit restive too.
That's why they mustn't hear until there's proper authority for them to do so.
Thank you very, very much for coming here so promptly. I'm immensely grateful. Many, many thanks. I must say, I'm sorry we didn't get in first.
Yes.
Under the circumstances, I shall take it upon myself to see that no one else at Barford risks his life.
The important thing is that our people should know what we've just heard.
Why is it important, Elliot? Oh, I think I can go some of the way with you. If there is any temptation to make a practical demonstration of this weapon, and on the whole I shall believe that when I see it, then the scientists are likely to have their own views. If that is the case, I suggest to you that 2 points arise. First, the scientists concerned will not be listened to if they get their information through a security leak. Second, there is every conceivable advantage in the scientists acting entirely by themselves. Mind you, I can appreciate the argument that it's totally unreasonable for them to make a fuss at this stage. There's a perfectly tenable view that all weapons are scientific now, and that for the scientists to make a hullabaloo over this affair is a classic case of choking on the gnat, having swallowed the camel.
I can't see it as quite so simple.
No. There are times, it seems to me, when events get too big for men. That may conceivably be the trouble with us all. If that is the case, the only course that I can see is to play one's particular game according to the rules.
Look, Lewis, it might be useful if you came down to Barford with me. Can you make it?
When?
At once.
Oh, there's a lad who suggested if he didn't think it necessary. All right.
Good work.
Anything new happening?
Slightly. We've just had a signal from New Mexico.
It went off?
Oh, yes. It went off.
What happens now?
I wish I knew. I told the Barford scientists, of course, and they've asked me to go down.
Why do they want me?
I'm not sure that they do, but I thought you might help.
In what way?
In case they try to do something silly. I don't mind them doing something silly if it achieves the object. But I'm afraid they'll do it because there's nothing else to do. You can't expect decency from any collection of people with power in their hands. But surely you can expect a modicum of sense.
Have you seen much of that?
They can't drop the bomb.
Have we had details of the American test?
All I know is that the bloody balloon went up all right.
Frightened the shit out of some
Pity
of
it wasn't yours.
Ours ought to go a bit higher when it does go.
Gentlemen, ladies. The argument between the scientists and the military is getting vicious.
Before we go any further, I would like to ask who invited L.S. Eliot to this meeting?
I did. I take it no one objects.
I do.
I do too.
I understood this was a meeting of scientists to find ways of stopping a misuse of science.
Yeah.
We've got to stop people who don't understand science from making a complete nonsense of everything we've said and performing the greatest perversion of science that we've ever been threatened with. It is the general class of people like Eliot who are trying to use the subject for a purpose that none of us can tolerate. I don't see the point in having one of them join us. Not that I have anything against L.S. Eliot personally, of course. I don't suppose he actually would authorize the using of the fission bomb.
Wouldn't bank on that. Shame on you.
We all know that Eliot thinks as we do. He also knows a great deal more than any of us about the machinery of government. That is why he can be useful this afternoon.
I don't want anyone who knows anything about the machinery of government.
Bloody right. People who know about government machines all end up by doing what the machine wants.
And that's the trouble we've got ourselves into today.
We want Lewis Elliot in on this.
Why?
Because you're a wild man, Arthur, and he's a cunning old dog.
Well, if you really do want him, I suppose I'm prepared to stay.
I should think you are.
But I still object, in principle.
So let's get on with it.
Some of you are against the use of the fission bomb under any conceivable circumstance. Fair enough. Some of us, perhaps the majority of us, might countenance using the thing if there were no other way to win the war.
And since we're still at war with the Japs, I suppose that's still valid.
Surely if dropping the bloody thing can stop the war, then telling the Japs we've got it might.
Especially if we gave them proof.
What kind of proof?
Scientific evidence, of course.
And if that doesn't work?
We could demonstrate the device.
How?
We'll drop one in some unpopulated area.
But if there's any sense of feeling left, don't begin by using this bomb on human beings.
To be fair, that is the message that our American colleagues are trying to get through to Washington.
To what effect?
Some people are listening.
Enough?
No one knows. Benson's optimistic.
Now I am worried.
We can't leave it at that.
I agree.
What more can we do?
There's plenty we can do.
There's only one way we can make it impossible for them.
What's that?
Issue a public statement saying what has happened, what is proposed, and our objections to it.
Who's going to issue this statement?
We are.
Breaking the law.
I know that.
Breaking our oaths.
I don't like that, but there's no other way.
There's still a war on. You'd never get your statement out.
I think we could.
The whole thing would be hushed up. A few of us would be in jug, and the whole bloody issue would be discredited.
We might be unlucky. In that case, a few scientists would be discredited. If we do nothing, then all scientists will be discredited. Now, I can understand some of you fighting shy of signing the statement. I shan't mind putting it out by myself.
No, Arthur, that's not fair. What's more important, it isn't realistic, you know. All that would happen is that a Nobel Prize winner would be locked up for trying to break the Official Secrets Act, and the rest of us wouldn't be able to open our mouths. Don't you see, if we try something illegal and it doesn't come off, then we've completely shot our bolt. We wouldn't have a scrap of moral authority left.
I don't see any other way.
We do. Some of the scientists on the Manhattan Project have already signed a petition that the bomb should not be used against human beings until every other avenue has been explored. How many of us would put our names to a similar protest?
I make that unanimous.
Terrific. What do we do with it? Burn it and send up smoke signals?
No. We put it through the proper channels to where it will have most effect.
How?
By deputing 2 or 3 English scientists to fly to Washington with it. Nobody's unpatriotic, nobody's discredited. It's a perfectly proper demonstration that the scientific establishment is at one on the subject.
I like it.
It would make even the Americans think twice.
I'll go like a shot.
So would I, but I'm sorry, Walter. For this to be effective, we must send people who are known in the States, at least by repute.
Who do you suggest?
I should like to propose Arthur Mountney.
Well, of course I'll go.
I should like to propose Arthur, a Nobel Prize winner, and the government chief scientist, Francis Gatlin.
You'd be putting your career on the line.
I'm willing to do that. More to the point, I can arrange for an official aircraft within 24 hours.
Make a team yet. I must say, I thought you handled it admirably. You judged the mood of the meeting exactly right. That's an art.
You don't seem to understand, Lewis. It wasn't just a meeting. It was the last chance most of us have got to try to prevent something utterly obscene. They can't be such fools as to use it, can they?
I hope not.
They can't be.
Scientists, British and American,
have made the atomic bomb at last. The first one was dropped on a Japanese city this morning. It was designed for a detonation equal to 20,000 tons of high explosives. That's 2,000 times the power of one of the RAF's 10-ton bombs of orthodox design. President Truman gave the news this afternoon in a statement from the White House. President Truman added that the atomic bomb opens up a new and revolutionary increase in destruction.
This is it.
Last night's target for the first atomic bomb was the city of Hiroshima on the shores of the inland sea west of Kobe. It's been an army base for many years. After the bomb had landed, airmen reported that Hiroshima was completely hidden by an impenetrable cloud of smoke and dust. President Truman's statement said that America is now prepared to obliterate every productive enterprise the Japanese have got above ground. It was to spare the Japanese people from utter destruction, he said, that the ultimatum of July the 26th was issued at Potsdam. The Japanese leader promptly rejected the ultimatum. But if the Japanese do not now accept our terms, they may expect a rain of ruin from the air, the like of which has never been seen on this earth.
Well, at least we shan't have to go on pretending we're better than anyone else. For hundreds of years, we told ourselves in the West we set ourselves impossibly high ethical standards. Haven't always been able to live up to them. We did a great deal better than most. From today, anyone who says that isn't a fool, because no one could be so foolish. Isn't a liar, because no one could tell such lies. He's just a singer of comic songs.
I'm inclined to agree. However, it's done now.
Can you imagine what the reaction at Barford's liable to be?
I'm very much afraid I can. I'm also very much afraid, my dear Elliot, that I look to you to see that any reaction is contained within bounds.